Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Memches Amid Aleph. Mishnah Memches Amid Aleph. So we had an introduction to the Mishnah. It's the first in Perek. We spoke about Lulav, right? The Lulav. We spoke about Arava, and now we mentioned Halal and Simcha. The mitzvah of saying Halal, the mitzvah of Simcha of the Korban Shlomim, the Korban of the Shalmei Chagiga, the Shalmei Shlomim that accompanied on Yantif. Okay, just this. Okay. It says the Mishnah, Halal Simcha Shmaina, Halal and Simcha are all 8 days. In other words, the mitzvah you say Halal all 7 days of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres, and there's a mitzvah to eat the Shalmei Simcha all 7 days of Sukkot and on Shmini Atzeres. We'll see a limit for this. Ketzad Malamed Shechayv Adam b'Halal b'Simcha u'b'Chavod Yom Tov ha'Achron Shel Chag Shag Yimos Hashana. That we are Chayv a person in Halal and Simcha and covered of Yom Tov, the last cover of Yant, meaning of Shmini Atzeres, like every other day. Minani Mili. How do you know that Shmini is Chayv b'Simcha? So now, if you look at the pasuk in the Torah, guys, it says the following in Parshas Re'eh, Perek Tezayin, pasuk Yud Gimel, Chag HaSukkos Tasa L'chol Shavas Yamim, Ba'aspecha Migarncha Mikvecha. Very familiar with this, right? That's what we learned that Schach from, right? V'samachta b'chagecha. You should be sameach b'chagecha. Ata, you, Vincha, your sons, Bitecha, your daughter, V'avdecha, your servants, V'amasecha, your maidservants, V'alevi, V'ager, V'yasam, Amana, Asher B'sharecha. Okay, so the pasuk says, now what does V'samachta b'chagecha mean? So the Rambam brings down that for women it's clothing and jewelry, for kids it's candy, and for men it's basar, it's meat. And meat, not just meat, but meat of a korban. So you said for 7 days you should eat meat. Good. Now pasuk Tesvav. Shivas Yomim Tochik LaHashem Elokecha, B'Makom Asher Yivchar Yivrech Hashem Elokecha, B'Chol Tavasach L'Maaseh Yedecha, B'Yisa Ach Sameach. So it says Shivas Yomim. Why are you telling me this? Din you already just told me that you have to be simcha. Then B'Yisa Ach Sameach, the Ach Sameach seems to be extraneous, and we're going to see that comes to teach us Shmini Atzeres. Because nowhere does the Torah say that you should be samacht on Shmini Atzeres. It doesn't say it openly, right? It doesn't say it openly. Should be Shmini Atzeres. Now. Minani Mili, how do you know there's a din of Simcha and Shmini Atzeres? It's on Rabbanan. V'yisa ach sameach. Ach sameach. You should be sameach. L'rabois leila yom tif achroin, to include the last night of the last night, meaning 7 to 8, the night of Shmini Atzeres. And Memela, if the night is mechuyev, certainly the day is mechuyev. That's what Rashi says. Guys, maybe it means there's a din of Shalmei Simcha on the first night of Sukkot. Meaning you bring the Simcha Erev Yontif, because you can't bring a korban at night. And maybe Ach Sameach means not just the 7 days, but meaning Leil Rishon, the first night of Sukkot, you should have a korban. When it says Ach Chalak, it comes to go ahead and make a division. No, only one, not the other. So the question is now, Umaroyas, why did you see L'Rabbi Sneli Yontiv Achroin when you had to include something? Why did you include Leil of Shmini Atzeres Ulahoitzi Leil Yontiv Rishon and exclude the Leil Yom Rishon? In other words, I could have the first night of Sukkot versus the first night of Shmini Atzeres. Why do we opt to go ahead and include the first night of Shmini Atzeres rather than what the first of Sukkot? What says the Gemara? I'll tell you why. Marba ani leila yom tov achroin sheyesh simcha lefanav. I will include Shmini Atzeres because all 7 days before there's a din of simcha of eating the Shalmei Simcha. Memela, the 8th day as well. It's a continuation. Umotzi ani, I will exclude leila yontif arisha shein simcha lefanav. Before yontif, before the Sukkot, there's no din. So, given my druthers, it makes sense to go ahead and include the first night of Shmini Atzeres rather than the first night of Sukkot. Okay, now there's a little problem over here. We have a rule: Kol achin v'rakin loiboyin el lamayit. Anytime the Torah uses the lashon of ach or rak only, it comes to exclude, not to include. Look at the Gemara. For yisa ach sameach l'raboy snela yantav achrein. The ach sameach tells me what? to include to Shmini Atzeres. But Achan don't come to include, they come to exclude. Says a beautiful Vilna Gaon, fantastic. Until Shmini Atzeres, there wasn't only Shalmei Simcha, there was Sukkah, there was Lulav. Ach Sameach, what is the exclusion over here? Lulav and Sukkah. And what remains? Simcha. In other words, add Simcha along. So the Ach is coming to Ramayit, the mitzvahs you had until now. The mitzvah of Sukkah, the mitzvah of Lulav, that's now gone. And what do you remain? So it is Taka going ahead and coming to include, but it's coming to include as a result of excluding, right? It's going to leave over, you're subtracting, but you're leaving over something. That's the Vilna Gaon over here. A beautiful shot to explain why over here you're chayiv in Simcha on the, even though it comes to be Mamayad, here you come to include. Okay, says the Gemara, Sukkah Shiva, Sukkah is 7 days, Ketzad. No, it's 7 days and not 8 days, guys. You don't need to tell me Sukkah Ketzad that you sit in a Sukkah for 7 days. If you don't know that by now, I think you have to do a strong Chazara, guys, right? If you don't know, you have to do a Chazara. Now, Sukkah Shiva Ketzad, Gomar Milechel, once you finish eating, Layater Sukkasai, don't take down your Sukkah. Don't take it apart. Says Rashi, why not? Gomar Milechel B'Shvi, Layater Sukkasai, Layater Agodim Shalah, don't take down the binds that hold it together. The whole day you have a chiyuv to sit in it and sleep in it. And if you have a suda, you'll leave it. So leave it intact. Leave it intact. Okay, now here's the problem. You have to get ready for what? For Shmini Atzeres. So now, you begin taking out the kalim from the sukkah, mina mincha ulemaila, from mincha and above. They covered yontif achron shel chag. You want to show covered Shmini Atzeres, so you begin taking out the kalim of the sukkah from mincha and so all that we said. We said earlier in the Masechta, you have beautiful kalim in there, different things. You should go ahead, take these things, be covered. Yontif Rashi says, Shemara kemechen atzmer lekrasai, has showed that you are preparing yourself to greet it, l'makom sheyisay shamalayla, to the place you're going to eat at night. So you're being taking your kalim out. So the lashon, I was talking to my son today. The lashon moirid es hakalim. Moirid means you moirid lashon go down. He says he thinks that, and I agree with him. They used to use their roofs. Being like, let's go to the old houses, the old days, right? So picture from our picture of Erevin, our first mission of Erevin. You have the house. In front of the house, you have the chutzner. In front of the chutzner goes into the mavli, right? The chutzner, you had rights in the chutzner. You didn't own the chutzner. You got 4 amas in front of your house to load, right? But where are you going to put your sukkah? You can't put your sukkah down in the chutzner. It's not yours. It is yours, but it's not only yours. So he put it on the roof. So it was I thought it was a nice horror. And if you look on the side, it says, I impare. If you don't have the side, you probably have a little letter. It says, I impare Rashi Shabbos Kuf Nun Dalid, Dima Maswell, Shtein B'dei Adam. I looked it up, and that's exactly what he says. I looked it up. He says, that's exactly what he says, that they used to put, that's why Lashon of Moirid. Remember, Lalois, guys, we spoke about going up. If your sukkah is in a tree, Lalois going up, right? So you go up, go down. It was on the roof. You went up to the roof. You went down from the roof. That's what Rashi says. Kufnan Dalit. It's very interesting. The lashon says the Gemara. Ein like kalim lahayrid mahu. We're supposed to. In other words, we take the kalim out of the sukkah not for the sukkah's purpose, for the Shmini Atzeres purpose. We want to show that we're giving chachana to prepare for what? For Shmini Atzeres, right? We want to show that. So by showing the chachana, by preparing. Let's say you don't have any house to bring it to. You don't have any kalim. Ein like kalim lahayrid mahu. Why do you have no kalim? Says the word, ain't like kalim, elakiyah shtamish, b'may shtamish. What did you use? Right. Guys, if you had no kalim, what did you had to cook? You had to put, what you ate with your hands? On your hands? Everyone has to have kalim. Ella doesn't mean ain't like kalim. What does it mean? Ain't like makam lahayrid kalim. Guys, you don't have a house. Guys, you don't have a house. You have to use the sukkah. So if you have the sukkah, how do you show that you're forming from Sukkot to Mini Atzeres.
Talk about a hecker to make it different.
Yes, to make some type of distinction to show you're preparing for Shmini Atzeres.
Why do you have to make a heck?
Covered Yontif, just said Lashon of the Mishnah. Look at what the Mishnah say. You take Kalim out and a minchul ma'alim. They covered Yontif Achron Shal Chag. Avrami covered Achron Shal means you want to show covered to Shmini Atzeres.
So the only way to show cover is by taking out.
It's not the only way, but you have to come up a way. So the way we came up with was taking out the Kalim, correct? Now you don't have that way now because you don't have a house. You've been living in the sukkah. So what are you going to do? That's what the Gemara is asking. So since you can't do that way, what way can you do to show what? To show this distinction. Okay.
There's
So
no achana problem on Yontif.
it seems that it seems to be okay. They seem it doesn't seem to be a problem to be making. That doesn't seem to be a problem. I saw it spoken out. It doesn't seem to be a problem over here. Okay, so now Rab Chia bar Rav Ashi Amar Poichis ba'arba. What you do is you destroy the sukkah. You take the schach and you poichis ba'arba. You do it. You poichis ba'arba. You passel it. Okay. So what are you showing? That you're eating the sukkah, but it's not a sukkah. That would be a heka, right? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar Madlik Boas Haner. He goes, you light something in the sukkah. You light a ner. V'lei pligi. They're not arguing. Halon v'halahu. Okay, guys, let's see Rashi. Let's see Rashi over here. Madlik es haner. Daminon shargi b'sukkah katana levan mitatalta. In a small sukkah, a light is outside the sukkah. So, and there's no difference between lighting a candle and and destroying the schach, because halon lebnei bavel. You know, bnei bavel, which is shmini shalahem, is suffix shvi. So now, guys, here's a suffix, right? Here's the suffix, right? Could you destroy the sukkah? Might be what? Seventh day of Sukkot, right? So you can't be poiches arba in chutz la'aretz. It might be Sukkot. So what do? You light a candle. You light a candle. You have it in the sukkah. Now, since the candle is usually outside the sukkah, the fact that's in the sukkah is a hecker. That's not, you're not there for sukkah. Good. That's long. That's us in Bavel. That's us in Bavel. Shalahem savishri to like kim lahu b'kvias diarcha. Madlik benes neri. There you light a ner. V'loiv chasena. You don't go be a faslena. You don't go ahead and take the schach and passel it. If you should tzarich leishe b'macher, you have to sit there the next day. However, in Eretz Yisrael, v'halahu libnei Eretz Yisrael, the kimle b'kvia diarcha v'lo yasvei b'sukkah b'shmini matem poiches. Then you go ahead and knock it down. Good. Says the Gemara. Ha'tenach sukkah katana sukkah gedoyla ma'yik l'meima. Guys, a sukkah katana where you're not supposed to have a ner in it, that would be a hecker. But if it's sukkah gedoyla, what a sukkah gedoyla in Bavel, what are you going to do? You can't destroy it, right? Lighting a candle is not going to be a hecker at all because you had a candle in there. The whole sukkah is anyway. It's only a small sukkah that you can't bring the light into. So if, let's say it's a big sukkah, what hecker can you make then? Fred the Gemara. So it says, what do you do? You bring your pots in. Guys, remember, what do you say? L'kavid sukkahs, v'tzela dem nusa, the kedusha of the sukkah. Don't bring your cooking utensils into the sukkah. What will you do? On Shmini Atzeres, you bring it in. By bringing that in, you show that it's not sukkahs, right? So the Rava says, mani michla, food for eating, bar mitalalta, that's outside the sukkah. Mani mishtia, but kalim for drinking, mitalalta, that could be in the sukkah. So therefore, that would be the distinction on Shmini Atzeres to go ahead, you take your kalim out. If you have no place to go to, you still have to be in the sukkah, bring your kalim in. And bring the kalim that you can't have during sukkahs, bring them in, or light a candle if it's a small sukkah. Okay, in the Torah, it does not say anything about Nisa Chamayim. We said that Asara, we said the din of Mechitzas, the din of Asara, the Tiyos, Es and the Tiyos, and Nisa Chamayim are all, and one more which I'm forgetting is Allah L'Moshe Misinai. Allah L'Moshe Misinai. So nowhere in the Torah does it say that you have to go ahead and and pour water on the mizbeach. But we know that it's a tremendous mitzvah accompanied with the Simchas Beis HaShoevu, which we're going to discuss, but this is the Mishnah that discusses the actual mitzvah of Nisach Hamayim. But the Nisach, how is Nisach done? Okay, this is discussing the mitzvah of Nisach Hamayim. So usually they would pour for different karbonis. You'd pour wine. You'd pour wine for a par. You'd have chatzi ahin, and for an ayil you'd have shlishas ahin, and for a sheep you'll have revius ahin. So either 6, 4, or 3 loigin. So here we have a machloikas whether it's 3 loigin of water or 1 leg of water. It says more Nisach Hamayim Ketzad. How would they do the mitzvah of Nisach Hamayim? Sloicha shel zahav machzekes shloisha loigim. They'd have a vessel of gold that held 3 loigim of water. They would go ahead. There was a stream out next to Yerushalayim that they would go and they would fill it up. Higil Sharamayim. If they reached the Sharamayim, you may remember Mesech Shkolim on the south side. We had a machlokes. There were 13 sharim or 7 sharim, but one of them is Sharamayim. We had a machlokes. Sharamayim is perhaps the third bias is going to be built. The water is going to come out from there from the lintel, right? Or this is the mayim where they would go ahead and bring water in for Nisach Hamayim. So they would enter through the southern gate, the Sharamayim. Tiku variya v'tiku al simcha. They would go ahead and blow. They would go ahead and blow, and they would then go ahead and blow again. And they would do a trua, and then they would go ahead and tiku, and they blow again. As this is the company, the simcha accompanying the bringing of the water. Ola bekevesh. They would go up the kevesh. So guys, let's discuss this. You might remember from Seder Masechta Yoma, we discussed the Mizbeach. Where was the Mizbeach situated? Well, it's Machlokes exactly where, but for Pashup Pshat, it was in the south. The ramp was in the south, the Mizbeach was in the south. We had Machlokes. How far in the south was it? All right, and you'd walk up. So if you walk up and you turn to the right, you'd be in southeast. If you turn to the left, you'd be southwest. We have a halacha that called Pina Shat Paina Ein El Yamin. You'd always turn to the right. You'd always turn to the right. So it should be, if you walked up the ramp, the first place you should meet is the southeast corner. So what did they do over here? Ola Bakevesh, they would walk up the ramp. Upanal Ismaila, and they turn to the left. They turn to the left, right? And why would they turn to the left? So we had a Mishnah. We're going to see it again. The smoke of the Mizbeach, guys, will ruin the water. If you're going to go ahead and walk around from counterclockwise, you walk around, the smoke from the Mizbeach would affect the water. So therefore, by walking clockwise, going to the left right away, the water is not being exposed to the smoke of the Maracha. So therefore, you turn to the left. And on the southwest corner, what was there? Shnei sapolim shel kesef hayu. There were 2 sapolim of kesef, 2 basins of silver. Rabbi Yehuda Omer shel sid hayu. They were made from cement. They got dark because why? Of what? Of yayin. Now, this is a great kasha over here. A great kasha. Guys, let's go to, this is Chaim Lax's daf, and Mendy as well. Lechem aponim, right? The lechem aponim, every week they would bring it in. There was a shulchan on the right side. What was it made out of? Marble or silver, right? Marble or silver, you are correct. Then there was one on when you took it out on the north, on the south side. When the shulchan's on the north, right? There was a table. What was that made of? Gold. Why did it have to be made of gold? Because it was on gold the whole week. The shulchan of gold, right? And we have a rule: mile of a kaidish, they maridim, right? You always go up, you never go down. So now, you just told me, what did you fill this up with? Why did you fill? In what container did you fill the water with? Gold. What are you pouring it into? Silver, or worse, or cement. How can you go down? How can you go down? You were holding it in gold, and now you're pouring it what? Into silver? You can't do it. Great kasha. Oh, let me ask you a kasha. The Levina. What was the Levina on? What was that on? The Levina was klishares, but it was on the Mizbeach Hazav. It was on the shulchan. You couldn't eat the lechem upon him And then what they do? They put him on what? On the mizbeach of what? Outside mizbeach. How can you do that? Same kasha. And the answer is that the outside mizbeach is more kaddish than what? Than gold. The mizbeach itself is more kaddish than gold. Says Tosfos, these sapolim, these bowls of silver or cement, were attached to the mizbeach. Since they were attached to the mizbeach, they had a din of the mizbeach. Since they didn't have a din of the mizbeach, he had no problem with Ma'alav Kaddish Meimah Reading. Geshmak of Torah. Geshmak of Torah. Okay, now so you had these two basins, umenukavim. They had holes in them, amid bays. Kimin shnei chaytmin, like two nostrils. Dakim. Echad meuba, the echad dak. One was thick and one was thin. Kidei sheyeshneim kolim bevas achas. In order, they should go ahead and be completed at the same time. Guys, outside. What would you do if you pour water? If you pour water and wine down two holes that are exactly the same in diameter, which is going to be finished first? Why? Because the viscosity of water is it's much less than yayin, right? It's going to go down quickly. To ensure that it'll be finished at the same time, says Rashi, the one that did the water was thinner, and the one that did the wine was bigger, right? So what would happen? When you pour it, they would finish simultaneously. That's the way Rashi learns. Tosfos doesn't like that pshat, because it should say either gadol or cotton. If it's speaking about diameter, what's the lashon of ma'uva? The lashon is thickness. So it says Tosfos, look at this Tosfos, second Tosfos, guys. Pirish b'kuntris, echamin and a kavim ma'uva, mashma shoyt zolaymar, shoya nekev rochav. The nekev was wider, the gadol, zeh mizeh. For lashon ma'uba mashma, sheshulei asafel, the bottom of the bowl, hoya avim, was thick. Umitoich kach ein hamashkem imar lotzes. So he learns the exact opposite, right? He learns the exact opposite, that the one with water, right, it was thicker. It was thick. The other one, wine, was thinner. So they come down, but it took the other one, the water, it took longer to come down because it was thicker. So he's learning. In other words, let's say if it's thick, so it has farther to travel. Masha'en, the wine, which is thinner, go out quicker. So he learns the opposite. But he's very geschmack. Tosfos pshat in the lashon of what? Of thickness versus what? Thinness. Very nice. So therefore, you had one was dak, one was kadesh shneim kolim vasachas. Ma'arvay shalmayim. The one on the you go into the southwest. The one that was the westernmost was of water. Mizrach shal yayin. The one that was more eastern was the wine. Iru shalmayim l'tech shal yayin. Shal yayin l'tech shalmayim. Let's say you mix them up. Yatsi yibi yatsa. Okay, so we have shloish shalugim. Rabbi Yehuda oimer beloig hoyim menasech kol shmeina. So Rabbi Yehuda argues on the Tanna Kama, guys, in two dinim. One, he holds it's one leg. And two, he holds it was done all 8 days. We hold it's 3 legim and done only 7 days. Ul menasech oimer, to the menasech they would say, Hagba yadcha, lift up your hands. Shepamachas, one time, nasach echad al gabe raglov. This was a tzedaki. They didn't believe in Torah She'ah Bal Peh. He went ahead and he poured the water on his feet. He was, again, remember, in the Bayis Sheni, we were a bunch of corrupt kahanim, a bunch of corrupt people. They went ahead and did it for what? For their kavod, for their position and honor. And what did they do? So he took the water, and what did he do with it? He threw it on his feet. And everyone stoned him with esrogim. They say he died. They mamish the guy pelted with esrogim. Can you imagine a lot of broken pitums? A lot of wasn't there?
Expensive stone.
What?
Expensive stone.
Yeah. I don't think it cost so much. Okay. So they ended up killing him. And these Hamayim took place on just like it took place during the week, it took place on Shabbos. However, to prepare for it, that could not be drawn on Shabbos because of Vaitzah. You have to carry it from the Shiloach to the Yerushalayim. They would fill it up Erev Shabbos, and Chaviyah Shel Zahav she'einu mekudeshes. They put it a Chaviyah Shel Zahav that's not mekudeshes. Guys, you'd have a problem of lina. If a kli shares, many values mekadesh, it's kedushas aguf. So you're gonna have a problem if it's left overnight. It's going to be lina. So you'd have to go ahead and just store it in a kli of zav that's not mekudeshes, mini shiluach, umeniach belishka, and they would leave it in the chamber. Nishbecha, if it's spilled, this galasa haya, or it was left revealed. Right now we have this halach of gilui, guys. There's a halach of gilui. What's gilui? If you have a liquid left out overnight, certain liquids, milk, wine, water left out overnight, you can't drink it because you're worried about a snake coming and taking a drink, and as a result, leaving his venom in there. So you can't do it. So let's say over here, what would the problem be? If it's spilled, obviously, it's a problem. You have the water. What's the problem? So Rashi says something interesting. Let's see Rashi over here. Rashi says, Shahayayin v'amayim megulim, nisgale haynu taima dememali menakir v'loy hoy menasech mem lefi shahayayin v'amayim hamugolim psul gab mizbeach. Why they puzzle? The chashinan shema shasa mehem nachash v'ha eres m'urif b'hem, and the eres is what is mixed in it. V'nimtza she'enoi menasech mayim kishir shahari ha'eres mashlim shiurin. You're going to be short, guys. You're gonna not. If this is holding, you must have a full 3 loigim of water, and if the snake is going to go ahead and drink from this, you're going to pour it in. You're not going to have full loigim because you'll have 0.1 whatever amount of venom, which is really, really funny. This is really Rash Tosis has a different shot. Tosis says Mishum Hakriveu no lepechasecha. Bring this to your governors. In other words, it's not covered to go ahead and put something like that on the mizbeach. That is there's a Gemara. The Gemara tells us that the only thing going on the mizbeach that something's roy for people to drink. It has to be mashki yisrael, mina royal yisrael. So why did Rashi come up with this pshat? In other words, since you can't drink snake venom, right? So why did Rashi come up with this pshat that you're missing the shear rather than more simplistic pshat and say simply the Gemara says, I think in Zvachim, Gemara says the beginning that it has to be mashki Yisrael, it has to be royal Yisrael. So the pshat is royal Yisrael means that normally you could drink water, it's good water, it's not intrinsically usser. There's snake venom in it. In other words, it's not something it's a sakana, it's not usser, it's a sakana. It's not chaylev, it's not dam, it's not something that intrinsically is usher. It is mutter, it's just something, stay away from it. So that's why Rashi had to say this pshat. Let's finish up the Mishnah. They leave in the lishka, if it's nishpacha, if it spills, miniskalaso, if it's revealed, hayimamali min akir, they would fill up from the kiyar, hayayin v'amayim megulim psulim galim mizbeach. The kiyar, now, why didn't you have a problem, guys, with the kiyar being lina? Because they would lower it at night into a pit. So you'd have, that was the galgal, that would be hashaka, they would go ahead and keep it. Okay. Minani mili. How do you know? Rashi says the toikinu amriyan simchas pesach shoeva. Rashi says, how do you know that they play music by the simchas pesach shoeva? Tosfos learns, how do you know they drew water from the shiloach? Okay. Amrav eina damakra ushaft namayim besasain mimana Yeshua. Shaft namayim besasain. So sasan is guys, sasan is happiness. The happiness is done through music. Taisa says the key word is shaftamayim, the drawing of water from the shiluach. So which is the main focus on which word, depending what you're trying to accomplish with your Nohan. According to Rashi and Manalili, it's music. So the main word is sasan. According to Taisa, that you're drawing water from the shiluach, the key word is what? Shaftamayim. Back in the Gemara. Hanu trey meaning. Okay, there's a very mud in the Gemara, guys. Very strange. I'll speak out something that I saw in from Rabbi Kornfeld. Hanu trey meaning. There is 2 meaning. Chad shmei sasan, b'chad shmei simcha. One of his names was Sasan. The other one's name was Simcha. Amalei Sasan l'Simcha. Ano adif neminach. I'm more chashiv than you. Tichsiv Sasan b'Simcha yasigu. And you see what? Sasan comes first. Amalei Simcha l'Sasan. I'm more better than you. Tichsiv simcha v'sasan la Yehudim. So Amalei sasan l'simcha. Chad yuma, one day shavkucha v'shavyucha parvanke. One day they're going to leave you, and you're going to end up being the parvanka. You know what the parvanka is? That's the guy who goes ahead. You ever see the war movies? They send the guy out to come back and say how many people are there. Go do that job, right? Right. The guy, the scout, right? You'll be the scout. Simcha teitzu. Simcha is going to go out. Amle simple sasain chad yuma shavchucha. You're going to be left alone, and you're going to be umale b'chamaya. You'll be a water schlepper. So that's the first. That's the first part of the Gemara. Okay, so what does this mean? What? So there's a sefer called Shemei Shmuel Chassidish sefer says the following. It says when it says min over here, it's an allegory. So what's the min? A min is someone who doesn't believe in Olam Haba. He only believes in Olam Hazeh. So what's the whole machlokes? What is in Olam Hazeh, since it's all about this world, is it sasain or simcha? Sasain, simcha is something that's constant, something you have all the time. Sasain is that surprise, the winning of the lottery, the Jets winning a football game. You know, when you have something that, like all of a sudden, that, you know, unexpected, right? Something that happens, like the Islanders winning the cup. It's something that he built up, and so which is it? Is it the constant happiness, or is it that, that's the machlokes between Sas and Simcha, right? And we know the answer. What's the answer? Neither one, because the next ma'aser that takes place. Amalei Humina, this Shmei Sasain. Rabbi Vau says this min, whose name was Sasan to Rabbi Vau. Asi do say that Alma. In the future, you're going to schlep water for me. Mashma, you're going to draw water for me. Meaning that there's no next world. There's only what? There's only happiness. There's only joy. Amalei says Rabbi Vau, Ihavi ksiv lis sasain. If I would have said shafta mayim lis sasain, you're going to draw water for sasain, kidakami, to be correct. Hashad ksiv bis sasain, you're going to draw water with sasain. What does that mean? Mashchedu gavra, your skin, right? Mashvina leguda, they're going to make it into a barrel. Umalina beimaya, they're going to fill it up with water. No, so he was telling him, the only point of simcha is to prepare you for what? For mayim, for Torah, for the real world. You're sasa, and you're so happy, right? Your mashcha, your skin is going to be used, meaning your joy. What can you use joy for? To be filled with mayim, a mayim el Torah. That says the Shemei Shmuel is the dialogue that's going over here. Nice Chassidish word. I should have shut the recording. Anyway, Olav Kevesh Upanul Smaila. He went up to the kevesh and he turned to the left. Tan Rabbanon Kala Oilam Mizbeach Oilam Derech Yamin Umakifin V'Yardin Derech Small. Anytime you went up to the Mizbeach, you turned to the right. You went counterclockwise and you came down the left. Chutz Mina Oila L'Shleisha Devarim Halalu. Except someone up, but he's following three things. She'Oilam Derech Small. They go up for the left. The Chayz Mina La'akev, and they come down backwards. In other words, guys, they go up to the left and then they would come back the way they came up. Good. Ve'eluhein nisa chamayim, nisa chiyayin, ve'oila sa'oif, kisharabasa b'mizrach. And the oila sa'oif umat, we said this the other day when there was too much business in the northeast, the southeast, they went to the southwest. Remember, he got mixed up. He ate one of them. We want to know I said with bar mitzvah whether you did a mitzvah. Yeah, that's sugya. And the reason over here is because of the ashan, because of the smoke. Elishoyim mashchirim. Rabbi Yehuda says they weren't made of silver; they were made of sid. They were made of cement, but they got dark because of the yayin. And bishlem the yayin mashchir, the maya my mashchir. Guys, there's two sapolim, one for water, one for yayin. So bishlem the yayin one I can know it gets stained, but the water, why would the water get stained? And if the water, even though Amar, Irish Shamayim Tashal Yayin, Shan Tashamayim, Yatsa, Shamayim Masil Ashkuri. In other words, it gets Bidi Yavi Yaitza. So I guarantee you, they weren't perfect all the time. Sometimes they would put the Yayin down the water hole, and therefore it became stained as well. Umunukavim Kimin Base Chaytmin that had holes in it like two nostrils. Let's say it's according to Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbanan. Tan Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the loig haya menasech kol shmeina. With one loig and not three, they did all 8 days and not 7. The Rabbanan ki adadi ninu. The Rabbanan said that, guys, it's in other words, guys, when it says 1 and 3, that would explain why we have to use 2 different sides of holes to make up that they come down at the same time. But l'chayre, if they're 3 and 3, they should go down at the same time. We know better. We know the answer to it. But again, just in measurement, the reason why the havmin of the Gemara is there's no difference between the viscosity of wine and water, right? So therefore, if you have a 3-to-1 ratio, you better make sure that the 3 has a bigger hole. Yeah. If it's 3 to 3, then the holes can be the same size. Says the Gemara, I feel him Rabbanan. Chamra somich, chamra is thick, and mayim kolish. That's the answer. Hachanami mistabra, the Rabbi Yehuda, rochav v'kotzer islay the islay. You should say wider and thinner. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, shnei kasvoyis hayusham. There were two kasvoyis over there. Those are two kalim. Hayusham echad shamayim v'echad shal yayin pia rochav, shamayim pia kotzer. Kadesh yushneim kolim v'vas achas shmamina. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there were two guys. They would pour like this. So one was wider and smaller, so they would go out at different times. So when they make the difference right in the safel, it's right. It's like the chachamim. Just be aware. You needed two kahanim to do this, because one kohen, if he's using two, he's using his left hand. So you needed two kahanim to do it, right? Because he only can use the right hand.